Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 7 of Growing Up with Godzilla. My name is Donny Winter, and I'm happy to have you joining me again today. This show, I've been really having a lot of fun doing it. It's about how we as Godzilla fans grow with the character that we love, and I'm having conversations with different members of the Godzilla fan community to talk about like how we've grown, who we've become, and how our understanding and connection to the character have shifted over time. Today, I am particularly excited to have my dear friend and unbelievably talented artist, Matt Frank, joining me. So, hello, Matt. Welcome to Growing Up with Godzilla. How are you?
Hey, Donny, I'm doing okay today. I'm really happy to be here. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, to see you, and I'm I'm just real excited because whenever I do a panel at a convention, and it's just me talking, I just title it "Matt Yells About Godzilla." And so, I just get to talk about this stuff, and that's what makes me super happy. I don't necessarily have to be like, well, I'm here to promote this specific thing today. Although I will be shilling for stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would not expect anything otherwise, right?
Of course. Well, but thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, that literally just made my little day, so thank you. But like obviously, like I'm gonna kind of go back and talk a little bit about like our history, like knowing each other. So I met you back at the 2018 G Fest. It was very fleeting because you were very, very busy, as most of the people in Artist Alley are, which is amazing. But I got to meet and talk with you for a little bit, and then we've been kind of friends online ever since. And I've the conversations that we have had, I've felt like have been very wonderful, wholesome conversations. So I have no doubt that that'll extend to this as well. My first exposure to to your art, and we'll have a brief conversation about this, was a long time ago, back in like 2005, when I was a little baby on the internet, on different Godzilla forums and stuff like that, and on DeviantArt. DeviantArt was my jam.
That's where it is.
And I was exposed to this piece of art right here.
Oh, there it is. Oh man.
Like Matt, I saw this piece of art and something in my teenage brain like clicked into place, and I was just like, I like that inspires me for some reason. I absolutely love it. So talk about that art piece. I'm nerding out to hear you talk about that art piece.
Well, man, that particular piece brings up so many memories and emotions and traumas. No, I'm just kidding. Mostly just that piece is really kind of a flashpoint for me when it comes to just a confluence of different artistic influences and different styles. So that piece in particular, the origins of it actually go all the way back to like 2001, like I mean, turn of the millennium, turn of the century stuff. And God, let's see, it's 2022, so that piece is at least 20, 21 years old now. Ooh. Oh God, it's legal. It can drink, vote, and fire a gun. So I mean, anyway, so I used to be on the Monster Zero forums, which became the Club Tokyo forums and then got mushed together. I don't remember, but Monster Zero was like, that was my hangout. Like that was where I went and like interacted with all the other fans. I met people there that I am still friends with now. And I remembered I was in an RPG forum. God, what was it called? It was like Kaiju something. It's not Kaiju, I'm sure was in the name, but it was like it was just this weird RP thing where everybody was just writing different chapters from the perspective of different characters. And it used to be like a fantasy match sort of thing. And then it kind of spun off into this Dragon Ball by way of Godzilla adjacent thing, and we had like, well, my character, the race is Gojiren, and it's but they're from this universe, and like it was very cringe. It was very cringe.
It kind of
but
sounds familiar to me.
it,
I think I may have been on it, possibly.
I mean, you may have been tangentially aware of it. We ruined a chat once, a live chat with a guy from Japan who was reporting on a new Godzilla movie. um, we were a bunch of rowdy hooligans, but my character, because I love the samurai aesthetic and because I was really heavily into anime at the time, I created this Godzilla from an alternate universe where kaiju had formed their own society, and he and the Mothra of that universe sort of had this thing going on, and my character sort of became like the Piccolo or Vegeta of this RPG universe anyway. And that illustration was commissioned by someone who knew those characters or knew of those characters, and I think he commissioned it for his wife as like an anniversary cut. All those details are really fuzzy, but yeah, and I made that as though these two characters were in their home dimension. And honestly, I look back on it and I think, man, how did like 2005 Matt make this? Because my art was garbage at the time, or at least I look back on it. I look back on it and I'm like, oh man, it just looks like a kid trying to learn.
You still wowed me back then, so I'm biased.
Well, no, it is like, again, it's a confluence of a lot of things. It's a very anime inspired scene. I'm a big romantic, so it's very I really love, like, I wanted something that was very tender. I wanted something very loving. I always thought of Godzilla as a kind of a more handsome creature anyway, so there's got to be a humanoid Mothra character would totally go for that type. So, and I was shipping Godzilla and Mothra before it was cool, okay? Like,
and Godzilla King of the Monsters took that and just took it to the next level, right? So, like, what I really remember fondly about that art piece, like, I used to write Godzilla fan fiction, and
as we all did.
And I used to have a small following. But I saw that, and it kind of motivated me. Like, that one image motivated me to develop those characters and kind of give them more like mental human characteristics and like emotional perceptions and stuff like that. So my series ended up developing this arc where Godzilla and Mothra had like this keen emotional understanding of one another because of that image. So proof that art can inspire other art.
I love it. That is one of those like Adora cringe. Like, it's so cute. It's not. I'm not calling your stuff cringe. I'm just saying
it was cringe.
Okay, then we're in agreement. No, but it's so genuine. It's so earnest and so genuine. And I think younger fans, especially, which I'm sure we'll talk about, are when they're looking to express themselves through the things they enjoy. They're looking for emotional complexities, looking for little nuggets of emotional complexity that then they can explore. And because if you go back and you look at the brass tacks of the characters of Godzilla and Mothra, I mean, they're more they really are more plot devices than they are characters. I mean, they have characteristics, they have personalities, but it's dependent on the film. And as kids, I think we like to make these connections where, like, you're like, oh, well, Godzilla must be very lonely, and Mothra is this very motherly, matronly, maternal figure that, really didn't get a whole lot of personality until arguably the Mothra trilogy.
But don't get me started on those movies. I can give a dissertation on those.
Oh, I know. I love them. I unironically love those movies because they are, what did I describe them as? Oh, I described them as Disney Channel doing kaiju movies.
Yeah, they're very whimsical, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I like that. what you described with like people needing that kind of sense of emotional complexity and connection with the characters,
Hmm.
and that's part of the whole essence of this show as well, because our own like emotional awareness and complexities evolve with these characters over
Hmm.
time as well. With that being said, like I want to go back in time. Like obviously we talked about the early 2000s, which were a riot, was a riot for both of us, right?
Sure.
Because the internet web space on forums, that was a thing.
Uh-huh.
So my question for you is, how were you introduced to Godzilla? Like I want you to share your story starting all the way back at the beginning.
What is the thing that goes like I can't remember what that's from, but it's like it
I
must
wish
be
I had I wish I
it
had that
must
effect.
yeah, it must be like an SNL thing. I don't know. But uh so I was just gonna say the one thing I didn't grab for my pile of stuff to show off was my first Godzilla, which is somewhere over here or somewhere over here, depending on which one I got first. But they were the Imperial Godzillas. You know, you have the
Yeah.
big the big like 12-inch one, and then you had the little like 6-inch one.
Mm.
Because when I was a kid, I was really into dinosaurs, like a lot of us were. You know, kids are drawn to quote to paraphrase David Cowlett, kids are drawn to this stuff by birthright,
Mm.
and um, you know, you see dinosaurs and you're just like, oh my god, like they're real monsters. They're real. These were things that were real, and they're not around anymore, so they have this mystery to them. And then you see Godzilla, and it's the biggest, baddest dinosaur you've ever seen, and it's in modern day cities, and it's breathing fire, and there's like 30 movies. So it's a fascinating confluence, again, because I remembered, I don't remember what came first, but like I remember getting a birthday card that had Godzilla on it, this big green Godzilla. And that was like one thing I remember looking at and just being kind of confused what I was looking at, but really liking it. And kind of like a sexual awakening. um and I mean, that's how it is for all the stuff in our brains. You know, you see
Well, like,
something,
yeah, we have that click. It clicks into place, and we're like, "What?"
yeah, you're like, oh, this is my jam, whatever this is. Like you have and I remember like I remember hearing one of my parents say, oh, that's Godzilla. And I'm like, what the Godzilla? Like my face comes up from the line of cocaine, like, what's a Godzilla? But anyway, so
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 relatable.
uh, yeah, I mean, when you're a kid, you're just on cocaine most of the time. Clearly, it's just called sugar. Um,
Basically.
yeah. So there was that. There were the Imperial Godzilla toys that I guess were probably given to me either by my parents for my birthday or my grandma, given to me by my grandma for no reason, which is just what she did. That's how she expressed love. She bought me things.
Gift
Um,
giving.
I know, right? So I remembered another big moment for me was I went to this restaurant with my parents, maybe the oldest, 5 or 6, and there was a big inflatable. You know those big inflatable Godzillas that you get at like you have like the used car lots and stuff.
Yes.
Exactly. So somebody had put that Godzilla at this restaurant in their back, in like they had like a playscape, kind of like a McDonald's, but this was like a slightly nicer restaurant, and they had the Godzilla just standing there in the playscape, but like standing over it. And so as a kid,
That is amazing.
yeah, so like as a kid, you're like, that's Godzilla. This is like your sense of scale is all out of whack. So you're just like, oh my god. And I had my little Imperial Godzilla with me, the little 6-inch one, and I remember sitting there like just in the shadow of this thing and thinking like there's I felt safe, weirdly. Like you feel like this big, I always joke that I have two dads, my dad and Godzilla. So um because at the time I still had not seen many of the movies. Like I'd seen clips on, like I'd seen them like on television through flipping through channels, but it was usually like right before I had to go to school or something, or I had to go to bed. And so finally, uh I'm trying to remember which one I saw. Like I remembered staying up super late to try to watch Godzilla 1985 on like TNT, or it was like Monster Vision or something, or some monster movie marathon. It also had like tentacles and critters and frogs.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I got exposed to like 9 different monster movie flashpoints right there. And finally, it was there's the triple punch. There was getting a VHS copy of Godzilla versus the Sea Monster,
Yes.
which again I have, and it's over there, and I forgot to get it.
Damn it,
And
Matt.
I know. And because it had this painted like comic book looking cover, and it was like this green like 1989 looking Godzilla breathing fire at sort of an Ebra that was off the
I
page.
remember that, yeah. I
probably
think
know
I
what I'm
had that version too.
You probably did. Like, that was really a common one. I had that one. That was the one where I was like, okay, Godzilla's not always the good guy. He's sort of an anti-hero, and he has a very distinct sound he makes. Because I didn't know that like Godzilla had like his own. I just was like, rah! But then he comes out of the mountain. And he goes, ah! And I'm like, whoa! I've never heard that sound in my life. That's so cool.
You know, I'm super jealous because your impersonation of that sound is better than any approximation I've ever tried. So you deserve like an Emmy, a Grammy, all of that for that.
Well, I have done a little bit of voice acting, so I do have some amount of diaphragm control. So just for doing silly voices as a kid. But thank you. I think it sounds like a cat's like a cat stuck in a tube or something. But and then the next part after that was the Trendmasters toys, which I think are over here on my shelf. Yes.
Yes.
The Trendmasters toys, my grandmother bought the whole line for me, like all of them, and I still have them. And those, I was just like, oh my God, Godzilla action figures that aren't just Godzilla. And then, lastly, it was getting the internet in the house and discovering Mark's Godzilla page on Netscape.
Oh
and we're off to the
my
races.
God. Nostalgia right now. It's hitting me. It's hitting me.
So you saw Mark's Godzilla page, like Barry
Yes.
Simple of Godzilla and all that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I remember, I don't know, do you remember Mothra's Shrine by any chance?
Yes.
I remember that was like one of those like old sites. I remember my parents thought that I worshipped Mothra, and they had like a sit down with me. They were just like, Donny, like, are you worshiping Mothra?
I mean, yes, but
and my little gay self, I had to be like, well, not really, but maybe.
If you're worried about that, Mom and Dad, we need to have a conversation.
It's like, Mom and Dad, wait a couple of years, and then you'll have something to be annoyed with.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, boy, do we have bigger fish to fry here. But no,
yeah.
I think my parents said the same thing. I think they saw, or I mentioned that, I was like, because I thought it was like, I remembered thinking it was so cool that this person had made this page, and it was sort of like Mothra is just so nice, and it's this protector spirit and stuff, and we should all strive to be more like Mothra. And I remember kind of expressing that to my family. It was like, that's nice. I just thought that was nice. And I remember my sister or somebody said, you got to be careful on the internet. There's a lot of weirdos who like actually worship that stuff. And I'm just like, all right. I understand
like, that's not us, right?
Anyway, no, but yeah, wow. That whole trip down memory lane, that's just this waves of nostalgia. Just
right. And
yeah.
I love that you also like, because in a prior episode I was talking about how the Trendmasters figures were like, that was like my first full collection of figures as well, and it was like my first kind of like bird's eye view into the existence of the Heisei era of Godzilla films, because
yes.
at that point, like in the like, what was that, like mid 90s, like they weren't released.
93.
Yeah, they weren't released here, so I was just like, what is this evil looking Mothra thing called Batra? What is this weird Godzilla looking thing with crystals on his shoulders? Like, this is so cool. So yeah, so that kind of gave me like that anticipation all the way until I finally got to see those films, and then I basically sobbed my way through them. Not to be dramatic, but
well, I mean, those movies were like, again, like you and I we were in that era when those movies were not being released in the States. And I remembered learning about them through Mark's Godzilla page, and then by extension G Fan magazine. And then I remembered going into a Blockbuster right about when the 1998 movie was coming out, or yeah, it was about to come out, and I saw Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah and Godzilla and Mothra Battle for the Earth just there on the shelf, and I'm like, oh my god! And I remembered that was the latest I had ever stayed up. It was 1 a.m. because I watched both of them back to back, and then I watched Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah again.
Matt, Godzilla and Mothra: The Battle for Earth. When I saw that film for the first time, I sobbed, number one. Number two, I'm fairly sure I annoyed the hell out of my entire family because I had the musical score playing on repeat. Like, I literally just rewind it, like, would rewind, like, the Mothra song. I ended up memorizing it. My parents, like, if they did not know that I was a flaming homosexual at that point, I don't know what other sign there could have been.
Oh, he's just really into musical theater. It's fun.
Like, why is my child being so dramatic and wanting to be a Mothra fairy? I don't know.
I mean, I speaking as somebody who is 84% heterosexual. I mean, it fluctuates depending on the day. I was like, I think being a Mothra stan, it is a means for a lot of young kaiju fans to explore this more. Because when you think about a monster from a Western perspective, and I have this conversation many times, the concept of a monster in our perspective is a Godzilla or a Kong. It's something brutish. It's something powerful. It's a power fantasy. Or it's a scary thing to be destroyed, like a dragon or any of the Harryhausen monsters. And God bless Harryhausen. But with Mothra, it is so different. It is it's from a completely different cultural perspective. And I've seen and heard people really poo-poo Mothra. And these are generally people who don't know anything about the character, don't know anything about the films. They just hear giant moth. That's dumb. And then you realize it's like, well, it's this protector deity from this South Seas island. It's a reverse Kong where like you transgress onto its domain and it responds in kind. And I'm trying to save up all of my Mothra ranting for. I'm hoping to do another episode of Unlikely Heroes, Matt Monster Monday, where we just talk about Mothra for 2 hours.
Oh my god, I am looking forward to that.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, I think it's a way for a lot of young fans to explore an angle of femininity and again this kind of non-aggressive, non-testosterone fueled kaiju-rificness, but from a completely different perspective, a non-masculine perspective, non-masculine coded perspective to get all my qualifiers lined up. I know that there's, again, we could talk about that for 4 hours. But
oh yeah, for sure, especially with me. Like that really hits it on the head for me. Like I think that's why I gravitated to that character and to the, to Mothra's priestesses, which are undoubtedly an extension of that character, right? Like they're all intertwined, right?
Oh yeah, like I just remember as a kid, for example, really wanting to watch Sailor Moon, like really being drawn to Sailor Moon, but
yes,
but there was this underlying, like, I guess fear for one word of it, because you're like, well, what if somebody catches me watching Sailor Moon? I'm a boy, I'm not supposed to watch this stuff. But I'm watching it and I'm just like, first of all, just legs for days. And secondly, I'm just like, oh, but these character designs are really appealing and really colorful, and this looks like it has a really good story. And then fast forward to what year is that? 2022. I literally went to to a bar with a friend of mine, a non-binary friend of mine, gender fluid friend of mine, the other night, and we played the Sailor Moon arcade beat 'em up, and the whole time we're just talking about how much Sailor Moon was like this thing that we were just like so into, but we could never tell anyone.
It's because there's those pressures, like we have like these pressures placed on us, especially when we're kids, where like we're always kind of internalizing this thought of like, well, what would people's impressions be of us? Like
Yeah.
I remember like being in my bedroom listening to the Mothra song, like doing like a choreography. It was the most dramatic thing ever. And then I would like quickly freak out, being like, oh my God, did somebody hear me? Is somebody gonna come in? Of course, over time I got over that, but
Yeah.
still.
You'd
But
think you'd think we wouldn't give a damn what people thought if we like Godzilla movies, like
right.
in the early 2000s when this stuff was not mainstream, especially after '98 put it in the ground. Uh, anyway,
Mhm.
go on. I'm sorry.
Anyway, no. That's basically like it just that what you said really resonated with me. Um, so like shifting a little bit more toward focusing on your career as an artist, right?
Mm.
So like could you describe your journey toward becoming an artist a little bit? Like, obviously, I think that probably is closely connected to your journey as a Godzilla fan as well. So, when did your interest in becoming an artist begin, and how did characters like Godzilla shape that interest?
Well, I think that as it is for a lot of kids, your you drawing is just something you do as a kid because it's just something to keep you busy. You keep your little hands busy and keeps you off the streets, and
Right.
and it's just a fun group activity. And as a kid, I wanted to draw dinosaurs. That was my favorite thing to want to draw. But I drew other stuff too. Like I drew I actually have some of my old drawings in like a little binder over there, and I mean this is like some of the earliest stuff. Like I drew like a whole thing of Sonic the Hedgehog because I was really for a hot minute there super into Sonic the Hedgehog.
Same.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's back when it was fresh. Uh, and what else? What else? I drew that. I drew what was it? Cadillacs and dinosaurs because I really like the
Mm.
artwork. Um, and it really, for me as a kid, I just wanted to draw the things that I liked. I wanted to draw Godzilla. I wanted to draw dinosaurs. I wanted to draw Spider-Man or Ultraman or Gargoyles or Batman or whatever I was watching on Fox Kids at the time, and 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 eventually it that didn't really lock into place as a potential career path until I was probably in high school because I got really into manga and I had read comics a fair bit when I was younger, but not a whole lot of mainstream stuff. Like mostly it was Dark Horse, Dark Horse Godzilla comics, the Marvel Godzilla comics, uh, those weird Ultraman Towards the Future comics that are
Mm.
real trippy. Um, those comics were like some of the only American stuff I was reading, and then when I got really into manga, it's this just bingeable, digestible format of all these graphic novels. You're just like devouring them, and I started learning about how manga artists created universes, created worlds, and they just ran with it themselves. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to create not just art but stories. I want to create narratives with what I do. And I remembered telling my mom that, and she was not the most thrilled. She's very supportive now that the career has solidified. But, and that's an expression of your parents. A lot of artists, they tell their parents this is what they want to do, and their parents are like, oh God. And again, it,
Right.
it comes from a perspective of it's a protective instinct. It's for a lot of people, I mean, and not everyone has the luxury of parents who at the very least will pay for your college for your dumb art degree.
Oh my gosh, like I literally resonate with that because I had the same conversation with my parents over going like I changed my degree from music to writing, and oh my
Mm.
gosh. And now that I'm like a published poet, I'm just like, look, it paid off,
It's a
kind
thing.
of.
It's a thing. I'm doing a thing. I mean,
Look.
look, I it's tough. It's really
It
tough
is.
because the metrics of success are so non-specific and so
Yeah.
personal because I by some perspectives, like you had maybe very kindly said earlier, I would consider myself to be a success. But then by other perspectives, there's stuff I still want to do and heights I feel like I still haven't reached. And there are certain things where it's like the only reason I got the job for doing a cover for Marvel for the Ultraman comics was number one, Ultraman. Number two, because I know the licensors because I had
Mhm.
worked with them on something else, and then I think I had sort of like slid in there like, hey, I really want to do a Marvel cover. You guys mind putting me in touch with them? And they were like, okay, Matt, just like very kindly they put me in touch with the people doing the comic, and I got to do a cover, and then I got to do a second cover, which was really nice. Although that was just reused art from the Ultraman pinball machine, but hey, a cover is a
Well,
cover is a cover is a cover.
I think that's great because I think what a lot of people don't realize as artists, and I'm lumping writing into that category as art too, but we like a lot of it is networking. Like you have to
Mm-hmm.
do so much networking, and that's exactly what I had to do with getting collections published, so on and so forth. And we have to do that though because we are constantly placed under like this veil of commercialization. Like everything
Mm.
is commercialized, and we have to operate in that space, right?
Yeah, networking is really a big part of it because it's unfortunate that a lot of the time it's not about what you're qualified for. It's not about how much weight your name carries. It just is about who you know, and that kind of sucks because you don't know everyone. You can't know everyone. Like I remembered talking to the people who did the Criterion Godzilla set, and I think this was right before I got the job for the Gamera set and just did the whole thing.
Oh,
Um,
which
but
I love, by the way.
thank you. I'm very proud of how that came out. But like, just I'll give you an example. Like, my friend Sophie Campbell, who does the Ninja, she's the current writer and main artist for the Ninja Turtles comics. She did the poster art for Destroy All Monsters for the Criterion set. And
Mm.
I heard through the grapevine that she was doing it. So I reached out to her and said, hey, I'd really love to get in on this. And she said, you're not already on it? And so she like messaged the people in charge of it to try to get a connection going. And they were like, oh, we're already full up. All the spots are taken. And I'm like,
Oh.
oh, oh well. I mean, they said, oh, if anybody drops out, we'll call you up. But it's just one of those things where it's like their job is not to know who all the fans' favorite Godzilla artists are. Their job is to get that job done. So they're going to go to the artists they know, like Art Adams and Sophie and
Mhm.
um, oh shoot, Jeff Darrow, and it's great artists. There's some really good art in that set. Um, and then I went and I did the Gamera set, and I remembered Sophie telling me, I never want to hear you say you feeling grumbling about not getting to do the Criterion set because you have to do the whole Gamera set. And I'm like, fair, fair, fair. But then I remembered thinking like, I I really need to use this as an opportunity to get other people involved in and so I remember, so I started reaching out to people like mostly for commentary tracks and stuff. But then I thought I got to get Jolien Yates on the horn because he did those Gamera anatomy illustrations for the Shout Factory sets. He could do all of the monsters for this set, and I introduced him to Arrow loved his stuff immediately. And that was what led him to doing the box art for the Yokai Monsters set. Uh, and then he also did a bunch of the Shaw Brothers art too. And I'm just so happy that I made that connection happen
Mhm.
because it really is about who you know. And
Well, and as artists, we look out for each other too,
hmm,
right?
yeah,
And we have to because sometimes in this sphere, like it can be difficult finding work, or there's like a lot of unforeseen obstacles, you know.
Oh yeah.
You said that like you went to college to get an art degree, right?
Mm.
So like what took place after that?
Well, the thing to qualify is that my art degree was a fine arts degree from the University of Texas, which, it's a great school, but the fine art college is more about making graduates, like graduate programs and teaching programs and stuff. Although there are some really great artists I know who are produced through that program, but they're all fine artists. It's about galleries. It's about, is it art? What is
Mm.
art? And it really did expand my horizons as far as like what constituted art. That being said, there was an illustration program and they got rid of it right before I got to the school. So
Oh.
that sucked. So I basically spent the next 4 years, how do I put this in a nice way? Pissing off all my teachers because I wanted to be a comic artist. I wanted to be an illustrator. And they were all just like, why? That's not real art. Although I had some good teachers who were like, I did have some cool teachers who like went and got like a bunch of comic books and like put them all out in the middle of the room one day, and we were all just like, they were like, I did never seen I never read comics before, so I went to the comic shop and I bought like a bunch of comics, and everyone was in the class kind of flipping through them and being like, oh, I guess there is some cultural value to this. I'm like, thank you. So, but really, I started getting contract gigs before I was even graduated. In fact, I have another reason why I was pissing off my teachers, because I was skipping a lot of classes so that I could go have calls with clients and stuff. And I don't recommend that. You don't want to piss off your teachers too much. I'm just charming enough to get away with it. And so, so but really, if I'm being totally honest, the career didn't lock in until maybe 2 years after college, because you're a college student with a fine arts degree, and you graduate the year the economy collapsed in 2008. Like, there are no jobs. You're lucky if you can get a part-time job somewhere and supplement that with your with your art income, what there is of it. And at the time, so as I've mentioned elsewhere, I have ADHD, and it's pretty advanced ADHD. Like, it's strong, and I've spent my life fighting it. At the time, it was not diagnosed and I was not medicated. And man, I was really bad at deadlines, like really bad. And I blew a lot of deadlines at the time. Like, I'm better at it now, obviously. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have a career. But at the time, it was rough. And I remember just like having no money, had to move back in with my folks for a little bit, as a lot of us tend to do. And then finally, it was late 2010 when I started getting slightly more regular work as an artist. And that was when I got the call from IDW to do the Godzilla cover set for the Stomping covers, because I'd already worked with them before on some Transformer stuff, just little jobs here and there. But then I got to know Chris Mowry, who was one of their designers and writers there at the company, and now he like works for Toho. He does like YouTube stuff for them and whatnot. He's like their creative director or something. So good for him. But he and I got to talking. I remember this email exchange. I saw an interview with Chris where he was like, "Oh man, I'd love to do a Godzilla comic one day," and I emailed him kind of out of the blue, but I told him like, "Hey, I've done a couple of things for IDW. It would be so cool if we could work on a Godzilla thing together." And he emailed me back and being like, "Oh, thanks for reaching out. Yeah, it'd be really cool if we could do that someday." Little did I know, and he told me this later, he was like gnawing on his knuckle because they were negotiating for the rights for Godzilla at that time, and he could not tell me. So
Oh.
but then a few months, like a year or two later, that was when that was when they reached out, and I started working for IDW on Godzilla, and after that, it all just kind of spiraled out from there.
Which I was obsessed with those comics, by the way. They were amazing.
I'm glad. I am really glad. I I remembered like it was really fascinating being part of that process because the how do I put this? It was just like you really learn what it's like to be a cog in the machine,
Mm.
not in a not in a really ugly way, but in a like you are part of a creative team
Oh yeah.
and you don't have the final say on stuff. I had to have my creative uh nagging nerd brain. I had to have that checked a few times. Like I think
Mhm.
I very may there's a very good chance I may have chased off our first colorist on Rulers of Earth because
Oh.
I gave her too many notes. Which I mean, she got a better job after that anyway. But and then we
Mhm.
got Priscilla Tramontano. We got
Yeah.
her to as our new colorist, and she's an amazing colorist if you give her the time, which she very often did not, because Chris and I are just like constantly trying to come up with new stuff because we were constantly under threat of being canceled because the book was selling okay, not great, and they were like, and IEW was like, we really like this book, but the numbers just aren't there. It's not doing terribly, but it's not doing one really great. And I remembered like there would be these groundswells of fans. Like every time the book would start to lag, the fans would just rally around it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that was really, and finally IEW gave up and they're like, fine, just go until you're done. Um, which was very cool of them to let us do that.
That's so awesome. Looking at the grand scheme of things, like obviously we have developed this love of this franchise for our entire lives, right?
Mhm.
Are there any specific kaiju or human characters that you're really drawn to? Why are you drawn to them? And what specifically draws you to them?
I like how using draw that many times is a nice
No
little.
pun intended.
Sure, it's not. So I mean, obviously, I love drawing Godzilla himself. I've drawn that. I can say this, no one else can. I've drawn this stupid lizard every day of my life since I was a baby, so I know him inside and out. Really, like I know how to draw emotion out of him in a way that for me comes very naturally because I grew up as a fan of Ricardo Delgado's Age of Reptiles,
Mhm.
which are amazing graphic novels for anyone who hasn't seen them. Um, he really does a great those 90s comics. His more recent Age of Reptiles books, they're good, but he's going for a more naturalistic, like Walking with Dinosaurs,
Mm.
Prehistoric Planet type of approach, which is fine. It's really cool and creative, but those early 90s ones, there's so much emotion in those dinosaurs' faces. Um, and that was a huge inspiration for me as a kid. Um, but aside from Godzilla, setting Godzilla aside, um, there are characters like Varan, and Varan is just such a cool design. It's such a dark and threatening movie. Like it's not a
Mhm.
particularly good film, Varan the Unbelievable, but there's an atmosphere. A lot of that is thanks to Ifukube, but there's an atmosphere to it that is very oppressive in this almost Lovecraftian bleakness. That there's this uncaring god that just lives next to this village, and it'll just kill you for grabbing a butterfly, literally.
Mhm.
It's really nightmarish. And I'm what you would call a not necessarily a Lovecraft fan, but like I'm like a reformed Lovecraftist, where it's like I'm more drawn to reactions to Lovecraft's work, stuff like Bloodborne or Shape of Water, where it's like
Mhm.
it has those themes, but not the racism. Um,
Right.
yeah, one character that I locked in on for some reason was Miss Namikawa.
Oh, yes. Who
I
doesn't love Miss Namikawa? Like,
communist.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
kidding. No, um, no. I agree. It's like a lot of my like I guess nerdling sexual awakening when I was younger kind of got split between Miss Namikawa and Elvira, so you kind of see where some of my predilections are.
Oh, yeah.
um, And but with Miss Namikawa, she's sort of the poster child for 60s retro sci-fi aesthetic. I got this little one given to me by Hiroshi Kamitani. Gave this to me when he
Oh,
came through Austin. Um, uh, she so represents how you can get kind of weird with Godzilla stuff, because
mhm.
once you bring in aliens, you're like you're fully committed
Oh yeah,
to
for
the
sure.
Godzilla aesthetic. And she just has a great look, and you know, Kumi Mizuno is one of the best actresses in that whole franchise. Like, for years I didn't know Dio and Miss Namikawa were the same person.
Same. I was like mind blown when I figured that out at one point.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, because she's a really really good actress. And I do like to collect art from other artists I enjoy. And one thing that got stuck in my craw was, well, I want one thing that I can just a theme. I want one whole theme, and I'm like, Miss Namikawa. I can ask artists to do Miss Namikawa. So I have a couple here. I have this is by Val,
Oh,
who I may have to give you a link to her stuff, but she's a wonderful comic artist, web comic artist, and just does super cute kind of anime style characters.
that is precious. Yeah, we'll include any links down in the description of the video too, if
Sure.
anybody wants to go look.
Yeah, and this one is by Ashlyn or Ash. This one she gave me very
That is
recently.
that's stunning.
It's kind of a JoJo style um, Miss Namikawa. She gave this to me at Hill Country Comic Con. She and her boyfriend wrote cute little notes on the back too. Um,
Oh,
and I'm collaborating with her on a thing coming up, so keep an eye out for that. And yeah, I won't go through the whole thing, but I have this bag of Miss Namikawa art with Kanatani-san's Miss Namikawa on it, and I just have like I have so much art in here of but yeah, Miss Namikawa is a character I'm really drawn to, and I'm not at all jealous that the artist behind Godzilla versus Power Rangers is getting to draw her and not me, because apparently
right.
it's I've drawn so much of this stuff, and I've drawn that character so many times. Uh, and Oh God, I'm sorry, I just remembered.
Oh no, you're
I
good.
I ran into one of the last conventions before the pandemic was Wonderfest in early 2020, February 2020. I was in Tokyo at the Wonder Festival, and I remembered a cosplayer came by my table, um, and she was Miss Namikawa, and I mean dead ringer.
I think I remember you posted pictures of that.
Uh, I was like, oh my god, and I abandoned my table. And we had a line, and I told my phase six crew, like, stall, and I ran off after her. Oh god. And I grabbed some random person to like take a picture of me and her together, but I like got down on the ground like this, you know, just like oh my god. And I remembered sending that picture to Morgan and saying, hey, sorry, but I'm leaving you. And she wrote back, we had a good run.
She was probably like, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I mean, but I just remembered that was oh man. So yeah, that character really appeals to me a lot, and you can actually trace how the way Matt draws human faces has improved over time gradually by comparing like my first Namikawa to my most recent Namikawa. You can really see that, like, oh, he's slightly improved.
That would be a really cool thing to kind of examine.
Oh yeah.
Now my interest is piqued. I might go do that.
Geek Wade. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, those are characters I'm really drawn to. And then outside of Godzilla, you know, I've become a big Gamera stan.
Oh yeah,
Ever
we
since I
stand Gamera here.
yeah, ever since I worked on it. I mean, I always loved the trilogy, but after working on the box set, I came to appreciate all the Gamera films for different reasons. Even Super Monster. I freaking love Mak Fumiyaki. She's an amazing actress. These were given to me. Well, these both of these are Daikaiju Darling or Annabelle adjacent. Like she and I both have this one, and she gave me this one. So
I'm so jealous. They're so cute.
I love them so much. And I guess
So,
lastly, just
no,
lastly,
you go ahead.
this guy is one of my favorites. This is Nebula from Howl from Beyond the Fog,
Yes.
which that movie like means a lot to me because I was just a fan, and I made fan art for it, and Daisuke Sato.
I haven't seen that yet. I need to.
You gotta watch it.
I need to get my shit together.
So good. Donny! Donny!
Donny, this is your homework assignment.
Yeah, it is. But no, Sato-san gave this to me. It was one of the Kickstarter rewards, but he set one aside for me, and it means a lot to me. I did a whole photo shoot with this thing. Like I got dry ice, and